Welcome to Something to Marvel About, a podcast where we discuss and dissect the Marvel releases. My name's English Dave, and joining me to remind me who I am is my co host, Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Hello, nerds.
We are here to talk episode 6, I believe, yes,
Yep,
episode
yep.
6 of X-Men 97. The episode is titled Life Death Part 2. After last week's episode, they do this thing where it's like we go back and forth in the tones of the episodes.
Mhm,
Yeah. This one also gives us a double episode again. Once
yep.
again, two plot points. We have Storm plot point. We have uh uh uh. uh can I say the other plot point? This is a spoiler free segment. We have another plot point I can't mention, but even though it's two different plot points, I feel like there's a link between the two. you know Both of
Mhm,
these plot points about characters realizing that lies that have been told to them, or realizing something
mhm.
about themselves,
Yeah.
realizing that they can't just accept this new life, you know realizing that their fears are holding them back, and
Mhm.
realizing that they accept who they are. Andrew, what are your spoiler free thoughts?
Once again, I enjoyed the two story points that were mixed in together. Again, won't say who's involved, but I think this was a really good episode, especially after last week's tearjerker, as they say. And yeah, this episode definitely is getting me excited for the rest of the season and how it's all going to close out. And it's nice to see a fave of mine. That's all I'll say.
This was definitely a really good episode. It wasn't as gut wrenching as episode 5, but I think it was still very powerful. Like I said, it's a story about acceptance of
Mhm.
who you are, that the world may tell you that you are this, the world may tell you their lies, and sometimes we start to believe the lies of the world.
Yeah.
We believe that we're less than. This episode also talks about a colonialism, right? There's hints of that, and
Hmm.
how the colonials would go around saying, "Oh, if you want to be better, be like us.
Hmm.
Be like us." You know, it even there's one part where I will go into it later, where it goes into the Great White Lie,
Yep.
right, which I love that it goes there. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And again, this episode, I think it's powerful in a different way from last episode
Hmm.
because it's about realizing self, realizing that you are better than the world tells you you are. That sometimes the thing that holds us back is
It's
ourselves. The
ourself.
world will think it's the world, but no, it's ourselves.
Hmm.
And people close to us even will tell us, no, be like this, act like this. But
Hmm.
sometimes your real power is remembering who you are. And I think both storylines are about that. Haven't seen the episode and you don't want to know our spoilers, that's the end of the spoiler free segment. We're going to go straight right into it. The original series, he didn't die. He was dying,
Yeah.
but he did not
Yeah. He's
die.
dying.
He was, in fact, he was taken away by the Lilandra and the Shi'ar
Yeah.
to save his life. Though I'm kind of confused there,
Why
right?
so?
Because it's alluded that, oh, when she takes him away in the previous series, oh, you need to come with us to save you,
Yeah.
and you have to stay with us. You can never go back home again. And so it made me assume, and I'm sure you were the same, that, oh, whatever means they have to save him has to be a continued thing. He has to keep taking or keep going through a process,
Yeah.
and that process can only be done on their planet. But I, for this episode, I feel like that's not the case.
I,
I feel like he could have returned. I don't know. What do you think about seeing Xavier again?
I guess we didn't realize that what she was saying is I'm kidnapping him, right? We assumed yes. I like you thought, it'd be maybe like the Matrix. Maybe they had to like hook him into some wires on their planet at least for like 10 decades, right, or something.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely threw me off a little bit. Even on him, maybe we'll get into that because I just felt like he'd be like, oh, okay, thanks, but I got to go back
Yeah.
home. But
Right.
he seemed fine with it. I don't know. Maybe sometimes space can mess with your head a little bit, but that was a little interesting from them. But I guess in another view, I could see it. Right? He thought he had maybe finished his work as a teacher deep down, and he was following his heart for a little bit, which I don't think
Mm,
we I don't think we really get to see Xavier do a lot in X-Men, right? So I think it was
mhm.
kind of just interesting to see him be like, I mean, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you healed me. Let me be a little grateful, right? It would be rude to be like, oh, thanks for the heal, by the way. All right,
Right.
bye. So I'll allow it just for that reason. I'll allow it. He was being polite.
And I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves that the time in the show isn't the time in real life.
Hmm.
It hasn't been 20 something years.
Yeah,
It's almost like
right.
it's only about a year, I believe, or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
It's not that long. Uh, this episode does start off with a cool, epic space battle, which is a lot of Easter eggs. We
Yeah.
see a comic accurate Ronan the Accuser.
Hmm.
I love they calls the Shi'ar pigeons. It sounds so derogatory.
Yeah, there's so many derogatory terms this entire episode.
Right?
Like, oh, that's so
you
funny.
know, they're fighting this like the Shi'ar versus the Kree Empire.
Hmm.
The Shi'ar are just kicking their asses. I always love seeing Gladiator just come. He's just so solid. Like he's just solid, like
Always.
instantly, right? Also, we see a tease of Vulcan. For those of you who don't know who Vulcan is another Summers brother, Scott
Hmm.
Summers'
Hmm.
other brother. For those who don't know, he has a brother on Earth called Havoc,
Yes.
but he has another brother he didn't know about. His mother was pregnant when they went missing, and she was captured by the Shi'ar.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and Vulcan was born, and in the comics at least, aged up. And we see him. If you don't know who he is, I'll probably put a picture somewhere. See that. I found it interesting that Lalandra's like, "Oh, Charles, he's my guy, and I'm going to marry him," and everyone's like, okay,
Yeah. Like, it was so random.
right?
Uh,
He's just like, "Oh, right, okay, so I guess we are getting married," the people don't accept him, and he
mhm,
feels that,
mhm.
he feels what we feel, he kind of feels that, but Lalandra's like, "No, I don't like you. Don't worry about it. You know, stay and play peacemaker." And this is where we start getting the hints of colonialism. What I like about the
Yeah,
scene after they made the announcement, Charles and Lalandra are in uh, some kind of garden.
yeah.
They're talking about their future. In the background, you just see all these people, all these horse-like people, aliens, tending
Slaves.
to the garden. And that's the thing, you realize that they were slaves this whole time. And you're like, wow, okay. And especially because her words, right? Her words are like, oh, Charles, you should be peacemaker and help when we absorb the Kree. When?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
No, if.
When we absorb the Kree. You can teach them how to be good. You can teach them how to be great. And he's like, I want to go back to my own students.
Mhm.
Question: what do you think of Charles in his armor that allows him to walk?
Oh, I love that little armor. It got me hyped because I know that it's actually like straight from the comics. Which again, a lot of things are in this show. All the Easter eggs are amazing, but it was just nice. Like I said, I feel like it felt like a dream, right? Just seeing Charles have like the chance at love, walking around, like everything that is not Professor X, basically. It was a nice little moment for him, and I kind of hope he keeps that suit. Like, don't give that back.
Right. And again, Charles is showing his new life, and then we're back on Earth, and we're seeing picking up on last week. It wasn't last week's episode. It was 2 weeks ago. Life
Yeah.
Death Part One.
Hmm.
After Forge had been bitten by the adversary, and
Hmm.
and what I found interesting is that we're hearing the adversary telling Storm, "Let Forge die. He's the
Yeah.
one that did this to you. Let him go. Let him die." And the adversary starts playing with Storm's subconscious, mocks her desire to be a human.
Human.
I
Yep.
remember a couple episodes ago, she spoke to Jean
Hmm. Hmm.
for that teaser being human,
Yeah.
things like that. I liked that temptation. It plays again to Xavier,
Hmm.
right? He's been told, "Stay, be with us.
Hmm.
Have this new life. Forget your old life." The adversary is saying that same thing to Storm in a sense, like, forget that stuff. Fuck this guy. He caused you to lose your powers. You're not an X-Men anymore. Move along.
One thing I really liked was, Professor X is being tempted by love, right? While Storm is being
Mhm.
tempted by fear, right?
Oh,
I really enjoyed the slicing of these episodes so far. Like it feels very intentional and very like
mhm,
thematically brilliant, if that makes sense. Like
mhm.
it's just showing that yes, both good and bad can tempt you, if that makes sense a little bit. Like
Yes, yes,
it's
yes.
really interesting to look at it deeper in that way.
And then both of them are almost using their own desires against them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because it's not like a part of Xavier does like to stay. Part of Storm doesn't want to be mutant
Me too,
anymore.
man. Yeah,
So you're being teased by your desires,
yeah.
which I find really really interesting. But not everybody likes some of the choices that are being made. Back on Shire, Deathbird, Melandra's sister is all like, get those ghetto people, Milky Way ghetto people.
Best line ever. So funny. I was like, is that me? Wow.
Like what? And she challenges.
That's it.
I think it's an interesting challenge. Like, would you, for love, erase all your memories of your past to move forward?
I didn't really get it. And I mean, like, it, I just didn't see how that. I guess I see, but like maybe because I'm on professional exercise, I'm just like, why does that matter? Like, why is that what he needs to do to prove or remind you guys that he did save you, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It just literally seemed like Deathbird was looking for the one thing that she knew he wouldn't do, or
Of
maybe
course.
somebody was trying to get her to just get Professor X out of the X Men, right? That was also my second thought, right? Maybe Deathbird is working with someone else, because that was it was just very specific, right? It wasn't like, oh, I need you to prove yourself. I thought it'd be like the usual, like trial by combat, right,
Mhm,
or,
mhm, mhm,
or one
mhm,
of those
mhm.
things. But she's like, no, very specifically, forget your X Men. Like, like,
Right, right. To prove
I
to prove
don't
you're
know.
loyal to us.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I don't know if I.
If I'm looking into it, because later on, Lalandra mentions about something along the lines that if she's not the Emperor, Empress Deathbird could take over and it'd be a
Yeah,
lot worse. And almost alludes that with Lalandra, it's like, well, if you won't become my Emperor, I will abdicate from the throne.
yeah,
Type thing. For
fair.
she's willing to do that, and but she doesn't want to do that because it would mean Deathbird, who's
Different.
way worse than her
Yeah,
brother, who was bad himself.
yeah.
But what I found interesting was a conversation Xavier has with Gladiator, talking about the art and their history and their gods,
Yeah,
how their gods. There's a story of their gods they tell, which is it's almost like a Romeo and Juliet style story,
yeah.
where these two gods who were enemies came together and brought peace, and which is kind of cements the Shi'ar's attitude. Right? They feel like they're bringing unity and peace, and I love, love, love um, what Charles says. He's like, "How Rudyard Kipling of you." And for those of you who don't know who Rudyard Kipling, he was a writer back I don't know when, 18 something like I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but famously he wrote the Jungle Book.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of his famous stories. But he wrote a lot of things, and the man was very racist.
Yes,
And
yes. That.
and and the connection that Charles makes when Gladiator talks about, oh, we bring others into our way of living, and it's better for them. Charles says Rudyard Kipling because Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem called "The White Man's Burden,"
Mm-hmm.
which carries a lot of strong pro-imperialistic themes and racist subtext.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, saying it's the white man's duty to spread things in the world, and people should be like the white person, be like us.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is such an interesting theme that X Men brings into it with the Shi'ar, because they're the same. They're like, oh, we will take over you,
Mm-hmm.
but if you become like us, you become better.
Yeah.
Easy, right? It's that easy. Just let go of all
Yeah.
your past, your history, and your education, as long
That's
as you
all.
become like us.
That's
That's
all.
all.
That's all.
That's that's all it takes.
That was great.
Uh,
That was a great drop by Charles, though. To be fair, like I
yeah.
spent so much like reading up, um, and I yeah, it's just perfectly timed. It's like this like one-liner zingers. Like
Mhm,
it felt like he was just
mhm.
saying racist.
and it, and I love that connection because again we go back to Forge and Storm, and they talk about the great lies we tell ourselves.
Hmm.
You know, Forge talks about the mine shaft that was built by the Europeans,
Yeah.
telling them like, oh, we're here to help. But he also talks about the Great White Lie,
Hmm.
right? Again, connecting to what Charles says about Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah.
Great White Lie, you know, is about what's normal, what's the default. White
Hmm.
is the default.
Hmm.
White male is the normal, and everything else outside of that isn't normal.
Off. Yep.
And again, these are like heavy themes that the show talks about. And sometimes these lies that we hear from other people,
Hmm.
we start to tell ourselves. We start to believe it ourselves. You know, and the same thing happens to Charles. He slowly starts to believe that okay,
Mm.
maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go forward with this, and he almost does. But then Deathbed, I love what she's like. But Deathbed is like, why would you have him join with us? Have our blood mixed with his inferior
Yes.
freak fluids.
Her one liner is probably she feels like the negative version of Beast, right? You know how Beast has great one
Right,
liner. She's just like she hit Milky Way ghetto like fluid mix. I'm just like what I enjoy seeing her on screen, right? But at the same time,
right.
it's like damn lady,
I
calm
think she
down.
even said a line because their people are like this, like evolved from bird-like creatures. She makes fun of the fact that humans have come from like monkey, simian-like creatures.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I think
just
even one of the other council members was like, "He's not even a pure Terran. He's a lower caste, a mutant." I was like, "Damn."
so that was so funny to me because I was just like, so wait, I mean, like, what is it like? You know, what white male mutant, like black mutant, like, what is it? What is the pecking order of intergalactic racism? Like,
Right,
I didn't think they'd be called mutants all the way out there. I was so sure
right,
in space it'd be like, oh yeah, we love all types of species, but
right,
even there, they still have a hard time. So yeah,
right,
it's
right.
so interesting.
And then she tries to attack her and forces attack. But Xavier, I love the moment I spoke to you about this earlier on,
Mhm.
where he's just like, "Oh, I remember, I forgot about my greatest gift,"
Yeah.
and takes them all to astral plane. And I initially, and I'm sure a lot of people thought the same thing. We all thinking that his greatest gift is his mutant ability to control his mind, but no, his greatest gift is being a teacher. And I love that. It's just something you don't think about. That is his greatest power. Through the X-Men, helping them come to terms with who they are, helping them learn to control their powers, accept them. That's all the roles and goal of a teacher. Take away his powers, he can still do those other things.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the greatest gift. And I love that. You start to understand. And I think this is one of the first times I've really seen, at least in animation or film outside of comics, where you really appreciate that Xavier loves being a teacher.
Yeah.
It's not just for the sake of he actually loves being a teacher. And I just love that sequence in the classroom. I thought that was really, really, really well done.
And
He gives deathbed a demerit.
with the apple in her mouth, and I just have to point out the way that scene started with the classes in session was
Yes.
that was just
Oof.
it was just excellent because
Ah,
you see all
so
these
good.
superpowered beings like Gladiator 2 just like sitting sitting calmly at this desk like wait that was very good.
Well, because it doesn't matter how powerful you are, unless you're a psychic in the astral plane, everything is even.
And nothing. Yep.
Right, right. And then again, the fact that the two storylines parallel each other. Xavier realizing that, wait a minute, I'm more powerful than this.
Yeah, like
Storm has Storm has a similar thing. At first she's the adversary is trying to tempt her.
yeah.
It continues trying to tempt her, and then tries to really physically tempt her by putting her in a closed space. And we know that Storm is claustrophobic,
Hmm.
right? And saying like, "I will save you as long as you accept who I am. Forget about your past. Let go of all that kind of stuff." Same thing that's
Same thing
happening
with
to
X.
Xavier.
Yep.
You know, and I thought that was great. What did you think of the moment Storm realizes that actually? And I
Mhm.
think this is interesting because we all assumed we all assumed that Forge's machine didn't work.
Yeah.
I think it did. I think it did work. It's just that she had to get past the mental block, right? She got past the physical block, the
Hmm.
mental block. So that moment when she gets out of the mental block, what did you think?
Um, so I agree with you because my wife and I were not debating, but considering did Forge's machine work or not, I think it did because like she did lose her powers, right? At first something happened which made her lose her powers. So I feel like in physics or biology, whatever happened, something had to be undone, which is what his machine did. But then similar to if you ever had surgery or anything, you kind of have a few days before you get back to full fitness, right? So she just immediately wanted to give me powers again, and it didn't work. Whereas I feel like being pushed to the brink, right, and getting claustrophobic and confronting all these fears was like it's like the rehab after surgery. That makes sense. Like going like working back through the muscles, and then something clicks, and I'm after Magneto. I'm probably the biggest Storm fan, especially her voice actor. I love the theatricality of it and the way she
Mhm,
speaks. And so
mhm.
like the build up to her getting her powers back was truly just fantastic. Like her voice is ramping up. Like you feel it's almost like in your brain it's like Omega level thread is loading. Like I feel it, and oh yeah, the scene of her just flying and I guess transforming into this new costume and and completely ignoring Forge was, was that.
Forge is there dying. Storm is like, I can fly.
I think that's the funniest thing for the for this week for me because she took a good, I mean, I don't know, a few minutes. She flew with the horses. She did like some whirlpools. She literally took her time. But like, I was here for it, right? We're all just like, yeah, girl, you go
You
on,
know,
man. Go on with
I
your
was in
bad
it.
self.
I also forgot about Forge. I was like, huh? What? I mean, the scene was great. I mean, the music kicks in. I was just like amped. She's flying. She goes that part where she goes through the clouds into space.
Mhm.
You know, the costume, the new costume. Fun
Yep.
fact that's the costume one, the design done by artist Dave Cockrum. It was one of her original comics costumes.
Hmm.
Even her
Hmm.
hair grows back out again.
Everything. Yep.
I was like, oh, this is cool. I was in it. I was in it. But yeah, afterwards, like, wait, weren't you supposed to be helping Forge?
Just like it was very funny though. Like.
But her story or this story chapter of her story ends with her. You know, her and Forge talk about like, oh, going on a getaway
Hmm.
to a romantic island getaway. But you know, now that her powers is back, she's X Men again. It also comes with a responsibility,
Hmm.
right? You can't just walk away from things. You can't just run away from things, especially seeing what happened in Genosha.
Hmm.
You know, she has to. You know that she has. She doesn't get back into it,
Yeah.
but this alludes that she has to get back into the fight.
She has to. She she literally
Yeah,
has to.
she has to. And I found it interesting because it's a blink and you miss it moment on the news when they're talking about it. Um, the news reporter talks about how other countries are refusing mutant refugees,
Hmm.
right? Because what the narrative is that there were mutants from certain countries. You were from England, from America, whatever.
Yeah.
When Genosha became a sovereign nation,
Extermination.
people left their countries
Yeah.
to go to Genosha,
Yeah.
right? When this happened, they were like, "Oh, can I go back home?" Their countries said,
Country is
"Nope."
like.
Do I know you?
Exactly. Like, sorry. Ah,
And I thought that's interesting, and I wonder if that's going to continue as a narrative, like
I,
that they're being refused.
I
You know,
I have a theory there.
right?
And it's that, yes, that will continue, and Magneto is coming back, and that's going to make him pissed off, and that's going to make him turn back into a villain. It just feels like I said, in the back of my mind, I'm just like, Magneto, where are you? I haven't seen your corpse. And then mutant oppression, like, what pisses Magneto off more than that? And it feels like a good setup. I'm not obviously this is just my opinion or guess, but I really do see that as a possible story point.
And again, a similar thing happens with Xavier as he's educating them. What I love is how he educates the Shia on their own civilization,
Hmm.
right? And the truths. You know, sometimes we see this in like Western nations where what they project is this view of doing the right thing.
Hmm.
We're here to help people. We're gonna look after people who
Yeah.
can't look after themselves. And the reality is that you were part of cutting them off at the knees, as Charles says.
Yep.
It's because of you that they were in this negative position, and then you come and say, "Oh, let me help you walk." I cut your knees off, but I'll help you walk as long as you assimilate to my ways. You know, and I love when Xavier's like, "These are worlds that could have been bigger than you."
Hmm.
But the lie you told them, for me to be more, you must be less.
Yes.
I
Yep.
love that line that he says. I thought it was a brilliant line. There's a line he also talks about coexistence because one of the arguments that people talk about or mention when they say, "Oh, doing the right thing," or coexistence. Oh, but it's not easy. I
Yeah.
love storylines that accept that. Yes, of course, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Charles literally says, coexistence is messy. I love the speech. Thus, my love for education. You know, for my X-Men, the heroism teaches a lesson we mustn't forget that the universe is very old and all of us
It's
very
very,
young,
very young.
born of ancient stardust and all of them children of the atom. I was like,
Good
yeah,
stuff.
that is
Yeah.
Children of the Atom is the original subtitle of the X-Men
Mm-hmm.
because it was alluded that they were a result of the atomic age,
Mm-hmm.
nuclear testing and things like that. And I think it's such a beautiful statement because I think sometimes people look at like idealism
Yeah.
as a weak way that you just think everything's just going to happen. I think true idealists look at things that yes, it will be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Peace is hard. Doing the right thing is hard. It's actually harder than the other way.
Yeah.
But then how did you feel while he's making this amazing speech, and then suddenly he starts getting the vision, sees skeleton Gambit, and it
Hmm.
reminds you that Xavier is a very powerful mutant who's connected to other mutants.
Hmm.
How did you feel in that moment?
It was a great scene, first of all, because, like you said, I think I really enjoyed being reminded myself that Professor X is a great teacher, even before anything else, even before leader of the X Men, right? He's literally a professor, right? And
Yes.
and I guess the his vision connection has always been tied to like his empathy for me as well. Like it just feels like his mind is just open, and he's open to feeling the pain of those he cares about. Just the way it was filmed and seeing each of the students turn to skulls, and then like the big Gambit, and he was floored. He literally was floored from what he saw, right? And he was like, "Yeah, I got to go back. I got to go back."
Right.
Right? Like, what am I doing, right? Like, wait,
And
like,
even Lelandra's like, "But you love me." He's like,
mm.
"Yeah, well, I will not abandon my kind."
I love a grilled cheese too, so I'll find a way. And I
and
yeah, and I like that she's very stressed because she's like, wait, like I mean, you can't leave after all this. Like you should have left at the beginning, at the beginning of this. Like if that's the case, and he's still like, I don't, woman, leave me.
yeah, like, no, I have to go back. And again, you reminded that he's a powerful psychic,
Hmm.
so that kind of feedback of feeling all those deaths.
Hmm.
There's a scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan was like, I felt when I think when Alderaan gets destroyed, Obi-Wan's like, I just felt like a million voices just went silent. And I got that kind of feeling with Xavier. He felt that sudden silence of all the mutants around him. And for a psychic, that hits you powerfully.
Hmm.
That's like feedback.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something interesting that I thought was cool, where the difference between, or one difference between Charles and Eric. Like you said, Eric's a leader. Follow
Hmm.
me. I have great ideas.
Yeah.
Charles is a teacher.
Hmm.
I'll help you bring out your great ideas.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's the difference between Charles is not a leader; he's a teacher.
Yeah.
Xavier and Eric doesn't care to teach. Just follow his word.
Yep.
He's
Like
not here
literally.
to educate you. Just listen to what I'm saying. I'm right. Okay, and of course he's right many times, but it's still not. He's still not here to educate you.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the patience for that. Not at all.
Mm.
And we have it almost. This felt like an end credit scene. The next scene, the final scene, felt like something that you would see after the credits,
Yeah.
teasing what's to come.
Yeah.
And one of our theories behind who might be behind some of these attacks is true. It was, in
I
fact, Mr.
I
Sinister.
literally knew it. It's always him. It's all you can always tell like when something feels nefarious and terrible. Yep. Sinister.
Sinister. And I found it interesting, though, that Trask, who's the inventor of the Sentinels, because Sinister uses him
Hmm.
to access Master Mold,
Hmm.
he feels guilty about what happens in Genosha and asks to be killed.
Yeah.
I thought that's interesting that he feels guilty about it. He's like, I hate mutants, but not that bad, apparently.
I think mass murder is something that like everybody kind of gets a little bit like that was like genocide like
Right?
but yeah, I still hear you because at the same time I'm like really Trask. I mean you send sentinels like to attack mutants anywhere. Like
Yeah,
I'm
like
not,
you
I'm not trying to
created
bet.
them,
Yeah, like oh, so you wanna kill them in cities, not when they're all together. Okay.
right? Right? And
Sorry.
it's not like Forge where it's like or like Oppenheimer where I was making this technology for another reason and it was repurposed against my will. No, you knew what you were making. Okay, so I don't understand
Mm,
why he suddenly he wants he
mm,
feels guilty about it.
so big side eye.
But Sinister. But here's a question. Here's a question. Do you think Sinister is the final boss?
No, definitely not. Am I saying who I think it is, or uh,
You can say. I mean, it's just theory, so you can say it.
Apocalypse is for sure coming into this equation. Um, just I don't know. Yeah, the cable connection, Apocalypse. Like I feel that, and maybe even more. Like I want to say that this show has continued to even impress. Like even like for example, the adversary being sliced in as an
Mhm,
enemy, right? It
mhm, mhm,
just it gives me just some belief that there might be more. But I'm definitely calling it Apocalypse for sure.
mhm, mhm. I'm with you there. I think there's still an end game here, even though it was Sinister, and Sinister says this is just the beginning. The
Mm-hmm.
attack on Genosha was just prologue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness! Then what else is to come if that's just the
Like,
beginning?
sir.
Like what?
Mm.
uh, so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I do think I won't go into it, but there's a reason why Sinister wanted to create a cable,
Yeah,
using
exactly.
use the DNA. There's reasons for that, at least. And I'm not talking about comics here.
Hmm.
Some people think, oh, you're throwing in your comics knowledge. No, if you remember the original
Original
series,
show.
it goes into
Hmm.
that, right? It goes into all of that. So I'm interested to see where this is going. That was a great episode. I thought it was really emotional on a level of, it's really hard because on one hand we're told, you have to learn to move on, let go of the past and move on.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, you don't want to let go because our past is what defines us,
exactly.
right? Our experience of what defines us, and sometimes we have to remember our strength. And I think this did a fantastic job of showcasing that strength through adversary,
Yeah.
right? In the literal sense in this case. Anything else to add?
Yeah, two things, because just on that, like the same, I really love the show, first of all. um, that concept you just mentioned of dealing with the past, it feels like, even in Jubilee's episode, she was dealing with, her past and growing up. Even Jean going through her past memories, like it's just this same concept of everyone not being able to let go of the past, and the past can actually be an anchor, right, in your life in ways that you might not assume, or in ways that is deeper than just surface level. So I really enjoy, like I said, I think there's so many. I feel like I'll watch this show again when it's all done, and I'll be even more mind blown at some of the connections, right, and the story points. So just again, kudos to them. And then, yeah, we didn't talk about it. So just very quick shout out for Forge, right? He had his little victory against the adversary, right?
Hmm.
When he turned Doctor Strange for a second, right?
I mean, the runes were similar.
They were, and I really, again, just the same theme of connecting. I guess they're really connecting the verses now, in
Hmm.
this era. Like
Hmm.
it's at least from my little research, it's just the same idea that magic comes from one source, right? In this whole
Hmm.
MCU plus X-Men space, right? And yeah, I don't know. That was for me. That was like the Leonardo. I recognize that. I've seen that before. So yeah, no, shout out to Forge, because I think he really very quickly showed his range as a character, right? Being being the one that created the machine, he also knows magic. It's like, yo, this dude is.
Tech guy,
I
magic
yeah,
guy.
I now kind of get why, well, I don't know if that's. I'll say more about him and Gable, but I get more about why Forge is a very important and pivotal character, right, in the
Yes,
show, and I
yes.
and I think
For,
they
for
did him
years to
justice.
come.
Yep, and more. So I think they did him justice, for at least for me, right? Like I was impressed with his magic and just understanding, and just even not dying while Storm was flying, like for Forge.
Even little things like, Storm wanted to keep him at home, and he's like, "No, I'm coming with you." And then later you realize why, because he knew she was claustrophobic, and he knew that to get to the plant they're looking for,
Hmm.
she has to crawl through this crawl space.
Yeah,
He didn't want her to do that, and I love
yeah.
that little touch. Thought that
He
was really cool.
he does love her, I guess. True,
He does.
truly. So,
Um, couple of things just to quickly quotes that I liked. There's one line where Lilandra says to Charles, "Families often mimic black holes. Visit and risk being stuck in its ever spiraling vacuum of dramas. This is especially true with your students." Like, damn, Lilandra, calling him out, his students out.
yeah, like.
But then he's like, "Well, didn't your brother nearly destroy the universe?"
That's what. Listen, Lilandra, I don't know. She didn't really impress me per se. She feels like she doesn't get it, right? Like she wants to eat her cake and have it in
Yeah,
in like the weirdest way possible. Like, hey guys, this is who I'm marrying. Hey you, I'm marrying you. Oh, I'm gonna still be the same kind of emperor. It's like, wait,
yeah. She
pick a
didn't
lane.
feel she didn't feel like she was, like she was down for him.
Mm-mm.
You know, like I'm down for you for whatever you go through.
Mm-hmm.
I've got your back.
Yeah.
She didn't feel like that. I agree with you. There's one line when Charles is introduced to the council. He goes, "This guy speaks of me as if I'm your pet." It's not entirely a bad thought, though. I was like,
Yeah.
Charles,
So,
look at you, fresh boy.
yeah. Kinky, like, wow.
Right?
Professor. So funny.
Like,
Like
look
I
at
said,
you.
I enjoy this side of him. We don't often get to see his love, and I think
Yeah,
even
right.
when they had in the past, he would like come and go back. So it's nice to see
Mhm.
a Charles who is like, all right, this is my future. I guess I'm gonna be your your little doggy.
And my final quote, and I think this quote by Storm really encompasses the entire episode. She says to Forge, "What are demons but reflections of our fears and shame? Things we bury within us, hide from loved ones, even as they poison, even as they poison out our hearts,
Mm,
until we finally heal our adversary by embracing it, not fighting it, embracing
embracing
it."
it.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's encompassing this episode.
Hmm.
Embrace who you are.
Hmm.
Sometimes we'll be told this is not for us. This is not. No, embrace who you are. Like Mufasa told Simba, remember who you
Nah, yep,
are. I thought this was a great
perfect.
episode.
It
Anything
was.
else to add before I close out?
Yeah, no, I think we covered it all. Just great lessons, great juxtaposition, great side by side
Yes.
lessons, and overcoming fear and not running away from who you are just continues to be the overriding theme.
And I think again, this is a perfect balance of how you do two episodes that don't feel random to
Hmm.
each other. They kind of support each other. I thought
Hmm.
complement each other, I should say.
Hmm.
I thought that was very, very well done. What do you notice think of this episode? Did we miss anything? Let us know. Find us on social media at the Nerdy Bunch. Sorry for this recording. I am in Airbnb in Vegas for work, so I had to figure out. It was either no, that song's been in my head since I arrived. It's my first time here, so yeah,
And
it's been.
sorry, it makes me think of Flintstones. The second one, was it the second one, the live action one?
Oh yeah, the live
Yeah,
action.
sorry,
No, I
should
can't stop thinking about Ocean's 11 movies or
Oh
Ocean's
yeah,
movies.
right. Like I'd even watch them now.
So yeah, it was either delay the podcast or
Or rob
find
a
an
bank.
interesting way to record, right? Or rob a bank. Yes,
Yes.
because I'm doing this podcast, it stopped me from committing a crime. So thank you
Thank you,
for
X
allowing
Men.
me to do this podcast audio to an X-Men. But yes, find us on social media at the Nerdy Bunch. If you have any thoughts, let us know about this series. We only have a few more episodes to go. You can feel the build up. You can feel it's building up. I feel like we haven't felt the biggest emotions we're going to feel,
Mm-hmm.
which excites and scares me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my
Statement.
adversary.
Low.
you know. But
Uh,
on that note, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, David.
My name is English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch presentation of Something to Marvel About, where we spoke about X-Men 97, Episode 6. And as always, Andrew,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.